Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Movies, Music, and Movie Music. I'm Len Shaffer, and with me again is David Barrett, and David's going to start us off.
Yep. So we have a great movie from 1989 with two of my favorite actors. This is Stallone and Kurt Russell in a movie called Tango and Cash. Now, this is a buddy cop movie in the same vein as Lethal Weapon. And again, two of my favorite actors. In this movie is Jack Palance, who's from Shane, the Western. He was in City Slickers. He plays the bad guy, and he's amazing. He's also in the Batman movie with Jack Nicholson. So Jack Palance is in this, and Stallone, and they're rival cops, but then they come together once they're framed and sent to prison by the evil Jack Palance. And Terry Hatcher's in this from Lois and Clark
Oh, quite a
as
cast.
well, and
Palance always seems to play a
yeah.
bad guy with like a twinkle in his eye, right?
Oh,
There's
for
always
sure.
like a kind of fun part of playing the villain that he kind of puts across to the people that are watching, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Michael J. Pollard is in this as well, from Bonnie and Clyde and many other movies. But what a great movie. I mean, these guys, their career speaks for itself and their resume. There's even a part where Kurt Russell is in drag with Terry Hatcher coming out of the strip club that she works at. And she plays Stallone's sister. Great movie. Again, good one to put on the list to see if you like action. Like I said, cop movies. And, again, Tango and Cash. Highly recommended for
From
everyone out there.
1989, right?
1989. Yep.
It's interesting you mentioned Palance, who, when he was in City Slickers, I believe he got nominated for the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. It was a great part he played in that. And
Yeah.
in the Oscar ceremony, he was legendary because he was in his 80s and he did a bunch of one-handed push-ups to show how he was still so tough. It was one of the great Oscar moments. So that's one of the memorable things about Jack Palance.
Yep.
The first one I'm going to talk about today is appropriate given the month that we're in, and it's called Pride. It's from 2014, and it's based on a true story. It takes place in England in 1984, and at the time there was a lengthy miners' strike, coal miners, because Thatcher was closing a bunch of coal mines. What's interesting is that previous labor administrations had actually been closing even more coal mines, but they didn't strike because the previous administrations would come up with job training programs and other things for the miners to go to so that they wouldn't be left high and dry. But of course, Thatcher, being who she was, kind of patterned, she and Reagan were very similar in that they didn't really do a whole lot for workers. And so the miners ended up going on strike. Well, at the time of when the movie takes place, there's also a gay pride parade taking place. And Thatcher's administration was also, like the Reagan administration, very hostile to the LGBTQ community. And in fact, 4 years later, they passed a horrendous law about anyone that supported the LGBTQ community or did any kind of promoting of it would get arrested and go to jail and all that. And so the gay community was also kind of fighting for their lives and for their livelihoods. And one of the gay activists decided, we should try to pair up with the miners and see if we can fight together instead of being separate groups. And that's what the movie is about. And it's fascinating because you get these miners who don't have much in common with the gay community, although I'm sure some of them were LGBTQ as well. But there's a lot of resistance, but they end up, starting to work together. And much of the movie takes place in this small Welsh mining town. And it's a really beautiful film. Not a lot of famous people in it. The two most well-known names are Imelda Staunton, who's been in a lot of those British costume dramas, and Bill Nighy, Nighy, who I know I've seen in other films. I think that's how you pronounce his name, but I'm not sure about that. There's Yeah, I think I've pretty much covered it, but it's an inspiring story. It's obviously tremendously relevant today with all of the attacks on the LGBTQ community. And it just shows the power of two marginalized groups deciding to fight together rather than to remain separate. So Pride from 2014, a really beautiful, inspiring, poignant film to check out.
Nice. And good for the Pride, which is what next Sunday in San Francisco. LA Pride's this last weekend.
Right.
So yeah. Great. So another one, a very dark comedy called Shakes the Clown from 1991. Now this is written, directed, and starring Bobcat Goldthwait, who's a great comedian, most known for Police Academy movies and
Right.
from the 80s.
And for screaming things at people, right?
Yeah.
That's what he was famous for. So.
And he wrote, directed, stars in this, and Florence Henderson is in this from the Brady Bunch. We got Tom Kenny, who's the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants. Adam Sandler is in this, who plays his buddy clown. And Robin Williams plays a rival mime, because it's the rodeo clowns against the party clowns and against the mimes. And they all fight each other, and they get drunk and snort cocaine. This is a crazy movie in the best way. And just for the record, I met Tom Kenny at Stockton Con, got a picture with him and had him sign this movie. Then I met Bobcat Goldthwait at the San Jose Galaxy Con, and I met 1,000 celebrities in my lifetime, but I totally fanned out on Bobcat because of this very movie right here. And I got to meet Robin Williams at the Comedy Day in San Francisco. It's every third Sunday in Golden Gate Park. They have comedians from San Francisco. Some big names in that case was Margaret Cho, Robin Williams, Rick Overton, and then they have a bunch of local comedians. So that's where I met Robin. Didn't have this movie on me for me to sign, but I did mention how much I love this movie and him in it. And again, met Julie Brown, the actress from Earth Girls Are Easy and the Madonna spoof film called Medusa. Truth or Dare, and it was the spoof on Madonna's movie. And I met Julie Brown at the Folsom Street Fair. She was singing some of her songs. So I got to meet 4 people from this movie. And again, just highly recommended. It's very original. Bobcat just creates this world called Palookaville, and it's a clown town. And they have the clown bar where everybody drinks called the Twisted Balloon. Then there's the rodeo clown bar, and then there's the mime studio. And like I said, the party clowns and the mimes and the rodeo clowns do not get along, and they all fight. And in between, drinking and snorting coke and fighting each other. Hilarious movie. Again, a one-of-a-kind original right here. There's no other movie like this. Shakes the Clown from 1991. See it and enjoy, because it's one of those great flicks that's not like any other movie you'll ever see in your lifetime.
I think you're like me, David, in that you appreciate movies that are different and original because they're so rare.
Yeah.
And I should apologize. I was getting Bobcat Goldthwait confused with Sam Kinison, who was the one who was famous for screaming at people, not Bobcat Goldthwait. I got the two
Bobcat in Police Academy, he'd have this freak out scream.
Right. Not quite the same as Sam Kinison, but
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is a highly recommended movie. Absolutely love this film. A dark comedy, very original. Bobcat Goldthwait, Shakes the Clown. Yep.
Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about is a Will Smith movie from 2008. And by the way, the Shakes the Clown, that was from 1991. The Will Smith movie from 2008 called 7 Pounds. And one of the interesting things about 7 Pounds is you know that the Will Smith character is doing some strange things and also some remarkably generous things, but you don't quite understand why. And throughout the movie, they start revealing little bits and pieces about why he's doing this stuff. So it's a little hard to talk about the movie without doing any spoilers. I will do the best I can to give you an idea of how great the film is without spoiling the story for anyone. In addition to Will Smith, it's really a tremendous cast. It also has Rosario Dawson, Woody Harrelson, Barry Pepper, and Octavia Spencer in one of her first roles. She has a very small part in the film, and she's wonderful, as she always is. And Will Smith is also one of the producers on the film. It's touching, it's sad, it's beautiful, it's about redemption. And as I said, it's revealed slowly. And as with Pride, this I think this story will move a lot of you to tears. It certainly did for me, both Pride and this one. I definitely had some tears while watching them. The main story is basically about one man's struggle to deal with his guilt for things he's done in the past and how he can try to redeem himself for those past actions. One slightly interesting bit of trivia about this is the hotel that Will Smith stays at one point in LA is the same hotel that was also used in the movie Memento, which is another great film, which I will talk about at another point. But they use that same hotel for both of those movies. And also, as far as the name of the film, 7 Pounds, when you see the movie and see what happens, the title is really perfect. I don't think they could have come up with a better title for it. So I can't really say much more about it, but just say it's a superb, underappreciated film that is definitely worth checking out. And that's 7 Pounds from 2008.
That's great. Yeah. So I got a movie here from, is this 2001, did we say, or 3?
Out of the Furnace is from, we said 2013, actually.
Okay, 2013. So Christian Bale, something happens to his brother and some harm and done by Woody Harrelson, who's this total dirtbag bad guy in this movie. And I want to say he's a meth cook or a dealer, and it's just crazy. And Casey Affleck plays Christian Bale's brother. And Woody, here's the thing about Woody, I'll go on the record to say, and Cheers was one of my favorite TV shows when, Ted Danson and, Shelley Long was on there.
Right.
Then they brought in Woody. Didn't really make much sense to me, and I thought, wow, Woody Harrelson, he was a hack. I was like, he wasn't funny to me. I was just like, what a waste to bring this character on.
So you didn't appreciate his dumb guy shtick?
No, and then all of a sudden he does Natural Born Killers,
right? For
Oliver Stone.
Talk about versatility, huh?
And he totally flipped the script and made me a believer in his acting. And then he did. And this was a psychological thriller, action, drama. And then he did the movie Kingpin, which showed me his comedic side.
With Randy Quaid.
Yeah, and Randy Quaid, and it was just so funny. And he became one of my favorite actors because of Kingpin and Natural Born Killers. And then, their career, him in the movie Solo, and then him turning up in literally every movie in the last 20 years.
He's done Hunger Games as well.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting, on Cheers, he actually replaced Coach, the guy, I forget the actor's name, but Coach died. And so they brought in Woody Harrelson to replace him.
Is that what it was? I didn't realize that at the time. So yeah, he, and another movie he ended up in was Carnage, the Venom sequel, and he played Carnage, and it reminded me of those Natural Born Killer vibes. But Woody, he plays an amazing bad guy. Really super believable. And this movie is Sam Shepard, Zoe Saldana, Willem Dafoe, Forrest Whitaker, Casey Affleck, and the great Christian Bale, who we reviewed as
one of the great
actors of our time.
Yeah.
Harsh Times. So many great movies with Christian Bale. And anyway, Out of the Furnace. It's a revenge movie with great acting all across the board with all those heavyweights. Like I said, Sam Shepard, Forrest Whitaker, Willem Dafoe. It's an amazing movie. It's just in, out in some wooded area and, deeply layered characters and great acting all across the board from all these great actors as you would expect. Fantastic movie. Yeah, check it out. Like I said, Out of the Furnace, Christian Bale, Woody Harrelson, Casey Affleck, Forrest Whitaker, Willem Dafoe.
From 2013.
Yeah. Great flick. Lot of action. It's pretty violent at times. But it also digs deep into storytelling with characters and makes you a believer for the parts they're playing for sure. So again, Out of the Furnace. Check it out.
Okay, so I'm continuing my my streak of going backwards in time, and we're going to talk about Return to Paradise from 1998. Another one with a really tremendous cast starring Vince Vaughn, Joaquin Phoenix, and Anne Heche. And also features Vera Farmiga in her film debut. Interesting. She's gone on to do quite a few great things.
I've seen this one. This is a heavy movie.
Yeah, heavy movie, but a great movie. Great story. I love these compelling stories that offer you real dilemmas. This is actually a remake of a 1990 French film called Force Majeure, which I've never seen, but I assume it would be a similar story. So, and one interesting sidelight is that Vaughn and Heche were actually sexually involved during the filming of the movie. So that's kind of interesting. So it starts with three young men, among them Vaughn and Phoenix, who are on vacation in Malaysia. And their vacation includes, a lot of drinking, a lot of women, and a lot of smoking hash. So two of them leave after a couple weeks and go back to America. They end up in New York. And one of them, Joaquin Phoenix's character, stays in Malaysia. He wants to work there. He wants to do some research on apes in Malaysia. So that's how it starts. And it's this idyllic setting, right? A couple years later, Anne Heche is this attorney who tracks down Vince Vaughn and the other man. I believe Will Conrad played the third one. And she says that Phoenix has been arrested for hash possession in Malaysia. Now, the laws in Malaysia, at least at the time, I don't know what they are now, but I'm assuming they're probably similar. But they said if you have under 100 grams of hash, it's like a misdemeanor. It's not a big deal. If it's over 100, it's a major felony. And he had just over 100. He had, I believe, 105. Is it grams? I think it's grams. Anyway, so because it's this major felony, he's looking at a serious issue. And the government of Malaysia comes up with this offer to the other two vacationers. They say, if you both come back, then all three of you will serve 3 years in prison. If one of you comes back, then the two that are in Malaysia will serve 6 years each. And if neither of the others come back, then Phoenix will be facing the death penalty. So how's that for a choice? Can you imagine having to make that choice between spending years in one of those brutal Malaysian prisons or letting your friend die? Now, you add in the fact that they weren't good friends. They had just kind of met each other in Malaysia. And it's an incredible amount of pressure to put on these poor guys. And I just love that. I love movies like that where you really have this just almost impossible decision to have to make. So just to see if there's anything else I want to say on this. This is not a typical thriller, but it definitely is edge of your seat and will move you emotionally, as well as having yourself have to look inside and go, what would I do? What would you do, David, in a situation like that? Someone you don't know well, but you hung out with for a couple weeks. And now it's like, if you come back, you're going to spend either 3 years or 6 years in a Malaysian prison. And they're not known for being kind and gentle prisons. So what would you do in that situation? Any idea?
It's tough to say.
Yeah,
really is.
I mean, it's really hard for me too. I can't imagine I would want to let someone die though either. So anyway, thank God we're not having to make that decision. But Return to Paradise from 1998.
Here's a side note too, that Anne Heche and Vince Vaughn were in the remake of Psycho.
That's right. That was their next film. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, so that was the very next film.
I believe it was.
So they were involved in this one, and then went on to do the next one.
Yeah.
And then she tragically died. Wow. It's like,
she was young too.
What
Yeah.
I think there was reports of her like trying to commit suicide and did failed attempts many times.
She definitely had some mental health issues. Yeah. Really sad.
Yeah. Rest in peace. She definitely lit up the screen a lot.
She did. Very
The
talented.
Vanishing and all these movies, Anne Heche. So
very talented actor for sure.
We'll move on to, I am going to talk about the first one, but there is a part 2 and part 3, Smokey and the Bandit. So I'm from Florida, and Burt Reynolds is, one of the kings of Florida. He's just a Florida guy, lived there forever. And
played football at Florida State. He was a running back at Florida State in the late 60s, early 70s. And this is from 1977. It's really a cult classic from the 70s, for sure.
Yeah, and, we want to mention Jackie Gleason from The Honeymooners is in this. Paul Williams, who I just met in Pasadena for the Monster Palooza Festival. Paul Williams is a composer, co-wrote The Love Boat, many other songs, collaborated with Daft Punk, The Carpenters, Elvis Presley. He's amazing. He's a great composer, singer, songwriter. He was on The Muppet Show, The Muppet Movie. He was an ape named Virgil in Planet of the Apes, one of the many sequels in Planet of the Apes. He was Swan, an evil record producer and label owner in Phantom of the Paradise by Brian De Palma. So he plays Little Enos in Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah, speaking of a talented person, boy. I mean, and he wrote that song, The Rainbow Connection, which was the most famous song from the Muppet movie. Brilliant composer. Yeah.
For sure. And, Sally Field, she's always great. And Burt Reynolds. And again, they had a couple sequels. And just, in Florida, like I said, Burt Reynolds was one of the best. He had such a great career, Deliverance, Longest Yard, so many. But Smokey and the Bandit and Cannonball Run are just two movies that are really the highlight of his career. And, we have to mention Hal Needham, former stuntman, good friend of Burt Reynolds, and, was at the directing helm of, it was either this one or Cannonball Run or both. And it was a great movie. I mean, there was a time where semi-tractor trailers were the big thing in the 70s, and that's where the TV show BJ and the Bear with Greg Evigan came about. Yeah. The movie Convoy, Smoking the Bandit, this was all road movies, cop chases, the bad guy movie, but the bad guy's more lovable than the cops are.
And this is one of the longest chase scenes ever filmed in a movie. I mean, basically the entire movie is a chase scene, which sounds like it could be kind of boring, but it actually is a lot of fun. It's really fun to watch.
A lot of laughs along the way. We got to mention the great Jerry Reed, who's a country artist turned actor, is in this movie too. A stacked cast. I mean, the great Paul Williams, who I met and had the honor of doing an interview with in Pasadena, and they did a retrospective of his career. So if you want to see more of that footage of Paul Williams recently from the Monster Palooza, it's on my Entertainment Getaway TV YouTube channel. And never got to meet Burt, but I was the biggest fan and would have loved to have met Burt Reynolds. And, it just, it was a sign of the times. It just like, this was the It movie star in the It movie at the time. Started a lot of these movies that were big race type movies, The Great Race, and this other movie called Rat Race, with John Lovitz. I mean, it was one of these like road movies and pure comedy. Jackie Gleason, just really impeccable. Paul Williams, it was
Gleason
amazing.
Playing the Southern Sheriff and kind of the perfect stereotype of a Southern Sheriff. A couple other great Burt Reynolds movies. One is Boogie Nights. He plays the porn producer in Boogie Nights. And The Longest Yard, which was a great prison movie from the early 70s, I believe 71.
There's your Burt Reynolds in his prime.
Yeah. And by the way,
amazing.
The Longest Yard was also remade later in the 90s with Adam Sandler.
That's true.
There might have even been in the 2000s. I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah. And we have to mention too that Burt Reynolds was in the remake of the Dukes of Hazzard movie.
That's right.
With Johnny Knoxville, and he played the Boss Hogg character.
Right.
Which
Burt was a very clear takeoff of his character in Smokey and the Bandit, for sure.
Yeah, so again, Smokey and the Bandit 1, 2, and 3. There's never anything like the original. When they do sequels, it just plays off the original. So really see the first one. And if you like it enough, see 2 and 3. But definitely the first one is a stone cold classic. Again, Sally Field, Paul Williams, Jerry Reed, Burt Reynolds, Smokey and the Bandit.
Okay. Well, I'm going to talk about continuing to go back in time. This one from 1991. And you mentioned Sally Field. This is her starring vehicle. It's called Not Without My Daughter. And it's another thriller that will absolutely have you biting your fingernails and holding on for dear life. Another one based on a true story and also takes place 1984. I think I mentioned that year for Pride, I think. This one also takes place in 84 with Sally Field and with Alfred Molina, who has been in a million films, but most known, I think, for playing Diego Rivera in the Salma Hayek film Frida. So he played Diego Rivera in that, but he's been in a lot of movies. He's a really great actor. And so they play a husband and wife who live in America, but Molina is an Iranian doctor. And this is, as I said, 1984. So Khomeini is, the the leader of Iran, so it's a very repressive country, but he decides he wants to go back and visit his family and, go back to visit his homeland. And as you can imagine, Field is very reluctant to go to this repressive country, but he convinces her, we'll go with our daughter and just take a couple weeks there and you can see this country. It's a beautiful country, etc. Well, after they get there, he has a kind of transformation, partly because of his extremely religious and conservative family, and he starts becoming more extreme, and he decides he's going to stay there. And Sally Field, needless to say, does not want to live in Iran in 1984, as you can imagine. And he says, fine, you're free to go, but our daughter stays here with me. Well, of course, that's not going to work for her as well. She's not going to abandon her daughter to being treated the way that women were treated in those days. It's interesting. When I was doing research for this movie, there were some complaints by people saying that this is a racist movie or that it's propaganda or all of that. But as a lot of people pointed out, this is a true story. This is this woman's experience. It's what she went through, and it was in Iran, and you have to tell the story. It doesn't make it racist to tell a story of something that actually happened. Now, of course, people could argue of how much of the movie was true and how much was exaggerated, but it is a fascinating story. Just to look at a couple of other things in my notes here. Oh, here's an interesting one. So Molina was walking down the street one day and someone came up and punched him in the face because they confused him with the character he plays in Not Without My Daughter, which I'm sure actors have had to go through many times over the years. It's really a kind of scary sidelight. And he actually was somewhat uncomfortable playing the bad guy. He had to hit Field in one scene, and he really didn't like doing that. So it was very much not like the way Molina was really like. But unfortunately, that one viewer got confused. Another interesting thing about this, it was filmed in Israel, which is the most anti-Iran you can get, as we know from the current war. And in 2002, there was actually a documentary film that came out called Without My Daughter, as opposed to Not Without My Daughter. And this one tells the story from the husband's point of view. I haven't seen the documentary, but needless to say, I'm quite curious to see it, to see what he has to say about what really happened. Anyway, it's a really great thriller, works as a dramatic period piece, and it will hold your interest the entire time, especially, of course, being the fact that it's based on a true story. Not Without My Daughter from 1991.
Cool. And we'll do a further review of this movie with Sally Field and Ed Harris and Kiefer Sutherland called Eye for an Eye. And that's one where
I've seen that.
She has a daughter, and boy, Kiefer can play one hell of a bad guy.
Well, we talked about that in another episode, how he's one of the best there is at playing a bad guy. And he's really, really evil in this one. And Eye for an Eye, that's another great film.
Yeah. And so we're going to move on here to 1990 John Waters movie with Johnny Depp called Crybaby. And Tracy Lords, the former porn actress turned Hollywood actress, is in this from Blade and some other movies. But, it's about the greasers and the jocks, kind of like Grease. It's like John Waters' take on that. All of John Waters' movies are filmed in Baltimore. Some highly recommended from John Waters, my favorite, Pink Flamingos, his first movie.
Great movie.
Desperate Living.
Polyester.
Polyester is one of the great ones. Yeah. And later on, he did Pecker with Edward Furlong. And
Hairspray, which was made into a musical, which is actually a really good musical as well.
And A Dirty Shame About Sex Addiction with Tracy Ullman and Chris Isaac and Johnny Knoxville.
Didn't he also do Serial Mom with Kathleen Turner?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a darkly humorous one where Kathleen Turner is this housewife who becomes a serial killer. And she kills things for people like, kills people for things like wearing white after Labor Day or, things that are against the manners that, that you would expect a genteel lady to follow. So it's pretty weird and funny and typical John Waters.
Yeah, he's, if you're not familiar with him, I mean, you should definitely start with Pink Flamingos to see, his actress Divine, who did 3 movies, probably 4, and then died. And then he went mainstream shortly after that. And Ming Stoll, great person who I've met over the years, is a staple in all of John Waters' movies. Ming Stoll is awesome. If you ever get to meet her, she's fantastic. Loves her fans. But I'm telling you, one of the many great movies with Johnny Depp. and John Waters, it doesn't seem like those two worlds would come together, but here it is. Crybaby from 1990. Again, just, life in Baltimore, just another year, another cast, and just the world of John Waters, which familiar to everybody is just he's got his own style, what can I say?
For sure. And, I think Johnny Depp can pretty much fit into any style. I mean, he's played such a variety of characters over the years, for sure.
So John Waters, Johnny Depp, Tracy Lords, Ricky Lake, who had her own TV show.
And she was also in Hairspray, I believe.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, Ricky was long time like Mink Stoles, and most of all of John Waters' movies. Ricky Lake went on to have her own TV show and did some acting in other stuff besides John Waters' movies. But yeah, great movie. Not my favorite from John Waters, but definitely worth mentioning in his catalog and resume. Got to meet John Waters at bookstore, Books Inc. One time I met him at the Peaches Christ Midnight Mass, where she brings in actors and directors. So I got to meet him a couple times, and he's definitely a hero of mine. An out gay director who, just puts out, what he wants to put out, and he was never an ass kisser to Hollywood. They actually came and kissed his ass just like they did Kevin Smith on, where we're like, we like what you guys do. We're going to fund you to do more, because they were sold on their earlier stuff. So again, John Waters, Johnny Depp, 1990s Crybaby. Yeah.
Okay, well, as usual, I've saved the older movie for last, one from the Hollywood Golden Era. Nice. And this is one of my absolute favorite movies of any era, and that's Spartacus from 1960.
Oh, nice.
1960.
Kirk Douglas.
Kirk Douglas, right, who not only starred in the film, but also produced it and also really fought to have it made.
Wow.
And it's kind of interesting because it came out a year after Ben-Hur, which is much more famous. Ben-Hur won the Oscar for Best Picture and, in fact, won a total of 11 Oscars. And Kirk Douglas had tried for that part, but it went to Charlton Heston instead. So Douglas basically decided, well, I can make a movie about gladiators too, which is kind of funny 1 year later. And I actually think Spartacus is a better movie. I think Ben-Hur is a great movie and it deserved a lot of Oscars, but I think overall Spartacus is better. And one of the things that Douglas did, which makes me forever a fan of him, is that in 1960 or 59, I think, when they started filming, the Hollywood Blacklist was still very much in existence. And for those of you who don't know what that was, it started in McCarthyism, which was basically this thing. McCarthy was a senator from Minnesota. I forget what his first name was. I believe Joe McCarthy. And he came out with this thing about how all these people in Hollywood and all these people in Washington, D.C. are communists or communist influenced. And they started doing this witch hunt, and a lot of people, including thousands of people in Hollywood, got caught up in it. It was a really horrible thing, and they were forced to either testify and name names, or they would lose their livelihoods. And so what Douglas did for the film Spartacus is virtually his entire crew, all the technical parts, the writers, everybody, are people that had been blacklisted. So that took a tremendous amount of courage to do that at the time. And Douglas will always have my respect for that. And it's not just Douglas who was in this. The cast was just incredible. It has Laurence Olivier, Tony Curtis, Gene Simmons, Charles Lawton, and Peter Ustinov, who won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for it. It was directed by Stanley Kubrick, and this is kind of interesting too, because Kubrick and Douglas did not get along at all, partly because Kubrick was used to having complete creative control over his movies, and Douglas didn't want that. So they were constantly fighting with each other. And Kubrick was not actually even the first director on the film. What was his name? Anthony Mann was the original director, and Douglas had clashes with him. And so basically one scene is filmed by Mann, and the rest is by Kubrick. But later, Douglas regretted that and wished that he had stayed with Anthony Mann as the director. Let me just see what else I have on here. I have some other notes. So talked about the Blacklist, based on a true story. Of course, you know, how much can anything be based on a true story from 73 BC? It's not like we have a lot of information about 73 BC, but there really was a slave rebellion that involved thousands of slaves fighting against Rome. And Spartacus was really the slave who led that rebellion, and that's what they used as the jumping off point. And then I'm sure the rest of the film is probably fiction, complete fiction. But Peter Ustinov, it's interesting. He had this line about his daughter who was born when they started filming for Spartacus. And he said that she would be in kindergarten by the time the movie was finished, and that if she asked what he did for a living, he would answer Spartacus. So it was apparently a very long production schedule. But another interesting thing from this movie is there was a scene in the original where Laurence Olivier is trying to seduce Tony Curtis. Now, as you can imagine, in 1959, 1960, that didn't go over too well with the censors. Hollywood censors were notorious for being very strict about things they didn't allow in the movies. So they had to cut that scene. The scene was actually restored to the movie in 1991, but they didn't have the original soundtrack anymore for that scene. It had disappeared. So they had to dub the lines again. Tony Curtis was still alive, so that was easy. They brought him in. He dubbed his lines. Unfortunately, Olivier had died by then. So they found out through Joan Plowright, who was a famous actor in her own right, who was the widow of Olivier. She happened to remember that Anthony Hopkins could do a spot-on impression of Olivier. So they brought in Anthony Hopkins, this legendary actor, to dub a few lines as Olivier for getting that scene back into the movie. And they did credit him in the credits. So that's kind of interesting. It did win 4 Oscars itself, and probably would have won a lot more if it hadn't been for Ben-Hur being out the year before. So Kubrick, yeah, he not only, you know, had these clashes with Douglas, he disowned the movie and said he didn't want to have anything to do with it because he was so frustrated at not getting the creative control. And in fact, their clashes, he and Douglas, were so bad that they ended up going to therapy together. Now think about this for a moment. 2 men going to therapy together in 1960. That can't have been a very usual thing in those days. So you have to give a lot of credit to them for actually having the respect and for therapy as a process that they would actually go through that.
Yeah.
So they used 5,000 uniforms in this film, 7 tons of armor, and both the uniforms and armor were borrowed from an Italian museum, or I think it was multiple museums, and the production utilized approximately 10,500 people back before CGI, when you had to use actual extras for these epic scenes. So Hedda Hopper, who was a columnist, gossip columnist of the time, a legendary columnist, and John Wayne, they were both part of the Hollywood right wing, and they denounced the film because, of course, of all the blacklisted people, and especially Dalton Trumbo, who was the writer and who was an avowed communist. And so, needless to say, Hopper and Wayne were not thrilled with that. But one other item to be aware of, in all gladiator films, I'm sure you've all seen it, where the gladiator has his opponent down on the ground and he looks up to the emperor, thumbs up or thumbs down, right? The emperor goes thumbs up, that means he's alive, keep him alive, thumbs down, kill him. Well, in actuality, in ancient Rome, it was the exact opposite. Thumbs up meant send him to heaven, thumbs down meant put your weapon down. So you'll never see it depicted accurately in films because it makes much more sense for our modern sensibilities for thumbs up to mean keep him alive. So that's kind of interesting. Anyway, Spartacus from 1960, a true epic in every sense of the word. And I think you have one more for us, right?
Yeah. So this movie, so there's a thing called the Sci-Fi Channel. I'm sure everybody's aware of that now. What year did we say this was from?
2012.
2012. This is a movie called Bigfoot. And what I love about this movie, it has Danny Bonaducci from the Partridge Family, Barry Williams from the Brady Bunch, Alice Cooper acting in this movie, Bruce Davison, right? The great Bruce Davison, Sherilyn Fenn,
oh wow,
and Howard Hessman from WKRP in Cincinnati. What a cast! I mean, this is just it's one of the many monster movies that sci-fi does. You know, a lot of action, a lot of CGI. They CGI the Bigfoot. Alice Cooper plays a concert. Danny Bonaducci is the concert promoter and radio DJ. Barry Williams plays a very save the forest type of hippie dude who's trying not to let them cut the trees down for their big concert. Howard Hessman is the mayor of the town.
Oh, that's interesting.
And Bruce Davison and Sherilyn Fenn are the cops.
Sherilyn Fenn, one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood history.
Oh, for sure. I got to meet Sherilyn in Arizona at Mad Monster Party. I love her in so many great movies. She's just amazing. Of course, I love Howard Hessman from WKRP in Cincinnati.
One of the best sitcoms of all time.
Yeah. You got to meet Alice Cooper in Vegas one time for Days of the Dead Horror Convention. Just recently met him at the Monster Palooza convention with Bill Ward and Geezer from Black Sabbath. And there's video of Alice Cooper going up to Bill Ward and Geezer Butler's table and shaking their hands on my Entertainment Getaway TV. I got a picture with Sherilyn Fenn, but don't have any video of her. But what an amazing cast. I mean, I basically got this movie just because of who's in it. I knew it would be, a silly, CGI movie with the creature. But a lot of big actors later on in their career, they end up doing movies for the Sci-Fi Channel. I think Lorenzo Lamas, Tiffany. They always get these big names from the past to star in these Sci-Fi Channel movies. But again, Bigfoot, all-star cast. You could see Barry Williams, Danny Bonja, Alice Cooper. I mean, star-studded cast and really cheesy monster movie called Bigfoot. And the reason why you see the all the presidents in there
from
Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, Mount Rushmore.
Is because they film it in that area. So
South Dakota.
Yeah, South Dakota. And yeah, there you go. Blast from the Past. Sci-Fi Channel, again, called Bigfoot. And because of the cats in the background, I thought I would wear my Cat Sabbath shirt.
There you
go. Check
this
out. Even the cat on there.
I love it.
With the, I got this at the convention down in Pasadena. Cat Sabbath. So in honor of Lynn's cats in the background.
Yeah.
Again.
One thing before we go, I want to share one little musical note here. I recently saw Rick Springfield in concert. He was great, as you would expect, of course. But the opener I thought was actually even better. And it's someone that I'd never heard of. I think they might be local to the Bay Area. And I'm guessing most of you have never heard of them either. But you should absolutely check out their music. They are called Sun, S-U-N, Sun and the Saint. With them opening for Springfield, it was only two of them. It was a man who did guitar and vocals and a woman who played drums and vocals. Her drums were unbelievable, and they sounded great vocally, and they had a much bigger sound. You couldn't believe it was only two people. So I've checked out some of their songs, and one in particular, Be Somebody, is probably my favorite song of theirs, and I can't get the melody out of my head. It's very catchy. But anyway, check out Sun and the Saint. Definitely a band worth looking into.
Cool, and I'll mention about Rick. I got to meet Rick Springfield at the NAMM show. That was pretty awesome. And Rick, if any of you have been living under a rock for the last 40 years, he's got a documentary about his fans and his career and life, Rick Springfield. And he's also an actor, we did General Hospital. He plays a vampire in Nick Knight.
Did a very funny version of himself in Californication, which was a great TV series.
Yeah. And can't forget the movie he did with Meryl Streep, where he played her guitar player when she was in a rock band. Directed by Jonathan Demme.
That's right. I forgot she was in a rock band. I can't remember the name of the movie.
Ricky and the Flash.
Okay.
And the Flash is her band, and Rick Springfield's her guitar player. So Rick plays an actor in a band as a guitar player. I mean, the guy's a legend.
He's 70. He's just turning 77
He's
years
so
old.
good in concert, isn't he?
77, and he moves like a 30-year-old.
There you go, man. The guy's, and he still looks great.
Yeah,
he was a teen idol, but the man is never. Everybody put so much into his looks, and the guy's like, look, I'm a musician first, actor second, and he never rode the wave of look at me, I'm a good-looking guy, I have no talent.
Right.
Just the opposite. Rick Springfield, great actor, great musician, and again, check out that opening band. That
Sun and the Saint. Yeah, definitely worth checking out. So we're going to go. Until next time, thank you for watching. This has been another episode of Movies, Music, and Movie Music.
See you